So kindly note that today's session is being recorded and please mute your microphone if you're not speaking. Also, kindly feel free to already go ahead and use our question and A feature for any questions you may have for the panelists. And for any general discussion, kindly use the chat box and kindly go ahead and introduce yourself. And to start us off, we will hear a quick overview of our agenda for our presentation on the webinar today. So we'll start with some opening remarks from the team at PCCB and UNFCCC, and then we will jump to a few discussion on the gender considerations, learn a bit about our tool, and have some reflections from our UNFCCC experts in the room, and then we'll have a short question, closing, and reflections at the end. So to start us off for today's discussion, we'll hear some opening remarks from our amazing experts from the PCCB and from UNFCCC, Sarah Pima and Fleur Newman. So over to you. So perhaps we start with you, Fleur Newman, and then from after we go to Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today, and for us to have a conversation about this particular topic, which is very close to my heart. I'm Fleur Newman. I lead the work on the Action Empowerment Unit here at the Secretariat, which is made up of the Gender Team, the Action for Climate Empowerment Team, and work on children and youth. And one of the things that I wanted to focus on was the decision that was adopted at COP30 in Belém last year, which saw a historic decision around a 9-year gender action plan under the UNFCCC. It's historic in the sense that it's a very long action plan, very long period for an action plan, but it also includes some new aspects that build on the work that's happened over the last decade on gender and climate change under the UNFCCC. And of particular relevance for this discussion is the fact that it builds on the work. There's always been a priority area under the Gender Action Plan, the successive gender action plans on gender balance, women's participation and leadership in climate policy and action. And that priority area has been strengthened in the new Belém Gender Action Plan. And there's always also been an understanding that this work needs to be done in partnership, that this is not only for governments to undertake, but this is something that benefits from governments working with women's and grassroots organizations, as well as to be working from both the national to the local level in terms of government coordination and cooperation, and across ministries. So not only the climate ministry, but also any gender or social ministries that exist, that everyone needs to be working in collaboration, which is not always an easy thing, and it's not always an easy thing for governments. And so the action plan also includes some very specific activities and deliverables related to capacity building around women's and gender balance and women's participation and leadership in climate policy and action at all levels. So from the international level all the way to the local level. And that includes, and as I say, there's this recognition that this is not only for governments. So when you look at the Belém Gender Action Plan, you'll see a column which talks about responsible actors. So who's responsible for delivering on these things? And in that, it refers to relevant organizations. And the relevant in that sense is any organization that's working at the intersection of gender and climate, or might be working around women's leadership more broadly, and then there's an opportunity to bring a climate lens to that work. That priority area also has a focus on more broadly on multidimensional factors. So looking at women's leadership also across from young women's leadership all the way through a woman's life and livelihoods. So looking at this from a holistic perspective. So we have an action plan that recognizes the need for capacity building and also the need for multi-stakeholder engagement in all of this. And we, at the Secretariat, our role is to facilitate that engagement, and also we do that together with our regional collaboration centres, look for opportunities to do things not only internationally, but also regionally to support national implementation. And in addition to this priority area around gender balance, women's leadership and participation, there is also a priority area, the first priority area on capacity building, knowledge management and communication. So a recognition also of the importance of capacity building for gender responsive climate policy and action. So not only capacity building for women, but also for across organizations and governments to understand how to deliver on gender responsive climate policy and action, and to support women's leadership in that regard. So I'm looking forward to hearing the discussions today about how this how the work that's happening already can be better connected into the work on the Belém Gender Action Plan, but also hopefully there will be an opportunity to think about how to connect also that work to the work that governments are doing around implementation of the action plan. So I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Blair. And then over to you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Freya. Good morning, good afternoon, and evening to everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for the Women's Leadership and Inclusive Climate Action from Policy to Implementation, led by United Nations universities and next generation leaders. My name is Sarah Pima, and I'm a member of the Paris Committee of Capacity Building. It is a pleasure to welcome you to this event, which is the third in the PCCB Network Capacity Building series of a series of 8 sessions designed to help members strengthen practical skills and accelerate climate action. About PCCB, allow me to briefly introduce you about the PCCB. The committee works to address current and emerging gaps and needs in capacity building in developing countries, while also enhancing coherence and coordination in climate-related capacity building efforts. They support the PCCB mission. The PCCB network was launched as a platform for sharing knowledge, showcasing good practice, and connecting stakeholders working on climate-related capacity building across sectors and regions. Today, the network brings together more than 450 organizations from over 90 countries. Through the platform, members exchange knowledge, build partnership, and learn from one another to strengthen climate action. To learn more about the PCCB and the PCCB network and how to become a member, you can access the website. More information also will be shared in the chat. We hope today's session will provide practical insight, hand-on tools, and interactive learning to help strengthen climate finance, readiness, support gender responsive implementation, and translate policy into inclusive community-based climate action. On behalf of the PCCB, I would like to warm thank the university, United Nations University, and the next generation reader and other partners contributing to this event, and all participants joining us today. It is my pleasure to welcome again all the participants and to appreciate the speaking note from the crew. on the Gender Action Plan. And please, back to you, to Talisa, to continue with this amazing session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you also, Claire, again for the warm words. And then now that we have a better framing and understanding of PCCB and the overview picture at the policy level, now we will shift to the first expert from UNFCCC. We will have today, as you can see, it's a pegged program today with a lot of speakers. And who will start us off is going to be Minky Greenowald, who is an NDC expert from UNFCCC, where she's going to share us more details so we have a better framing and understanding of the gender considerations in the National Determined Contribution and National Adaptation Plans. So over to you, Minky. Minky, if you're speaking, we're not able to hear you.
How about now?
Yeah, now you're audible. Yeah, kindly go ahead.
Fantastic. Yeah. So my name is Minky Greenowald, and I support the NDC LT-led thematic area under the Regional Collaboration Centre based in Kampala. So today we'll be touching base on what we're seeing in terms of gender integration as being fundamental to effective climate action, especially on the NDCs and the national adaptation plans. So basically, this presentation is meant to just set the foundation on the discussions of gender responsive financing, implementation, and women's leadership. So on the next slide, before we further discuss, is just to get that general understanding on what the NDCs and the national adaptation plans are. In the next slide, please. In the next slide. Yeah, so we'll be discussing on the policy context and also understanding what we mean by these NDCs and national adaptation plans. So together, these plans represent national climate change strategies done at country level, which are basically the principal instruments through which countries actually translate the Paris Agreement into action. The NAPs focusing mostly on adaptation and building resilience, and the NDC primarily on mitigation and accelerating ambition, but not to discount that it also has adaptation components as well in its in the submission. So the foundation again of understanding these national climate commitments is with this understanding as exemplified in the next slide on why it is important for women entrepreneurs to actually understand and know their NDCs. I think first and foremost, it is critical to understand that the access to finance is very, very much dependent on with climate funds and development partners increasingly expecting any proposed action to demonstrate clear alignment between the national climate priorities as exemplified in the NDCs and the NAPs. But more so, secondly, linking any initiative that has been developed or is being implemented at country level and linking it to the NDCs and the NAPs actually strengthens its credibility with government institutions, because it shows that whatever proposed action is being implemented actually aligns with the priorities of the government. But more so the influence as well that comes from giving women organization and other stakeholders an opportunity to actually form part of the consultations that actually come up with this priorities and national commitments is quite important, because it actually shows that women can be part of the discussions to shape these targets and also inform our budget as well. But what is important now to understand is that the issue around gender consideration, is it something that is actually new? Where does it come from? In the next slide, it actually shows that in the next slide, please, that gender inclusion in the climate policy landscape did not necessarily happen by accident, but it has been something that has evolved over time through consultation among partners. And the Lima Work Program on Gender in 2014 sort of like establishes this foundation for advancing gender balance and integrating gender considerations around the UNFCCC process. But the Paris Agreement in 2015 also sort of comes in and strengthens this mandate in ensuring that it is explicitly recognized as being important, that gender responsive adaptation and capacity building are very, very crucial to the process. But of recent and to note is the recent gender action plan that was the Belém Gender Action Plan, which sort of continues to, would say, mechanize the Lima work program, and it's sort of quite a milestone for the UNFCCC process, because it now gives us a long-term gender action plan with a greater level of detail, including clearly defined activities and deliverables, and how it also provides the strong basis for advancing women's full and equal and meaningful participation in the process. So as much as there is an expectation from countries, and there's a cost-cutting standard that we see across NTC and the NAPS, but we, from what has been happening through the process, we now realize that now the question is not on the commitment, but how does it translate to effective climate action? So in the next slide, we see with the recent 2025 NTC synthesis report how gender is actually appearing in the recent NTC 3.0 that were submitted by countries last year. And it shows very much that there's clear progress, and gender is actually becoming more increasingly visible and integrated into this climate commitments. But we see that also around 89% of the parties have actually referenced gender consideration, which means there's still a gap of 11% of those that haven't. But also to note is that there is now quite a greater deal of calling for gender responsive climate finance, capacity building and technology, which we see as one of this initiative on the climate impact tool coming in to actually support that. But what is also of note is seeing that there is that general shift of always recognizing women as vulnerable, but now the shift is to actually identifying and recognizing that women are actually the agents of change, not the victims as they are ordinarily sort of like placed to be. So we see that parties increasingly continue to connect agenda across many various sectors, adaptation. Would like to see more in mitigation actions, but at least for adaptation, we are sure that there is much more engagement on that. But there are also like two crucial examples that we see from the NTCs that have been submitted. One case for Eswatini, where it is much more prevalent on how they are sort of looking gender perspective from a point of view of human rights approach and economic empowerment. And there's also specific budgets for the actions that are actually related on gender, which is similar to the Vanuatu NTC as well. So in the next slide, the other part of the coin is the issue around climate change adaptation planning and why it is important, and the issues around the climate change impacts all being known that they are not gender neutral, and unfortunately for women, they bear the brunt of the impacts on climate change, either through unpaid care work or limited access and climate finance to supporting initiatives, and all the understanding that most of our developing countries are also agro-based economies, which means the agriculture sector is quite crucial, but we see that a lot of women are still, a lot of actions around those sectors are still up and coming. So there is really need for continued support for women and girls in these sectors. But what is also very important to note is that of the national adaptation plans that have been submitted, actually 90% of them highlight gender considerations as quite relevant and important. In the next slide, there is a framework at which it is proposed on how actually women entrepreneurs and also at institutional level or at country level can actually use the national adaptation planning process as a way to actually assess the different vulnerabilities so that they can come up with a structured responsive way and with indicators, and to ensure that the stakeholder engagement is actually catered for as well. So we see this as a way to actually improve the planning process, not just to look only at the risk factors, but to also see the practical ways that we can implement adaptation measures, but also make sure that they are adequately reported on so that they can inform policy and furthermore other initiatives. So in the next slide, is just to highlight that all these commitments are very, very important, but what we see is quite a challenge for developing countries and countries in our region as well is the issue of translating the commitments to actual tangible action on ground, where it's actually converted to climate finance, which also brings in the issue that we are bringing here, that the understanding the policy context, yes, it may be a national commitment or a policy objective, but it does not necessarily mean that by virtue of it being communicated, then it will automatically become a fully fledged project. So there are many other gaps that remain at country level, where there are gaps that can actually support women and institutions working on this to ensure that there is actually improved access to climate finance, not only for grassroots entrepreneurs, but for institutions that are supporting women in the various components of climate action. So one of the things that we see as still lacking is the issue around capacity and tools for tracking and quantifying the contributions, and this is quite a moment of appreciation also to see that the institutions that are actually coming up with the tools to actually track the climate action and ensure that we gather this credible evidence so that our climate and gender outcomes are actually measurable. So as I close off with the last slide, is that for us, we see that in terms of the gender integration continuum, yes, there is that discernible shift where we see that countries are moving from being gender sensitive to gender transformative climate action and approaches. But we want to see that the movement goes beyond just vulnerability narratives towards women leadership, but financing and improving evidence for decision making will be very critical for translating these national commitments into more ambitious and inclusive and effective climate action. I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minky, for that big overview. We can definitely see that there is reflection from the policy side on the importance of women and gender issues. And then we can also see that for women, it's also pertinent for them to have a better understanding of the NDC and the NAPs for their respective countries and where they can contribute. And it's also good to hear that there is generally still a gap for more commitment to cash at the end of the day, which is a remaining pertinent issue. So to speak and tell us a little bit more about how women at the end of the day, with the work that they're doing on the ground, how it could be quantified and how they could be able to showcase this evidence, is our next presenter, Muti, who would be sharing a little bit more about her tool. So Muti is already ready online. So I would say over to you, Muti.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tari. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Muti. I'm an learning assistant in UNU Bonn, Germany. So today I'm gonna present you about our tool, Green Entrepreneurs Climate Impact Measurement Tool, or GSIM tool, that we've been developing for the past year. So the agenda for the session is just to introduce you to our form, and then I'm gonna let you to try out the form, and then we will have a short questions and discussion. So just a little bit of background. So why we developed this tool? So we think that grassroots women-led green enterprises, especially informal ones, face challenges in demonstrating their credible climate impact. And impact data are often not available in the standardized format or don't meet the requirements of usual donors or funds or just some researcher or policymakers when they need some formal documentation. So what we did about it, so we developed the GSIM form to provide a user-friendly digital platform to document climate impacts in a standardized format. So this tool bridges the critical gap between grassroots women's climate action and investment decision making. So we've researched existing tools which measure gender participation or entrepreneurship, while others track climate outcomes, and none effectively translate grassroots women's contributions into finance-ready investment-grade evidence. So the core value proposition of this tool is to enable investors, donors, or policymakers, or even researchers or scholars to see, quantify, and fund what has been visible, the climate contributions of grassroots women. So what this form does, so this form captures grassroots women's economic and climate activities like circular production, agriculture, or waste reuse, quantifies their impact using standardized gender and climate indicators, and translate the data into metrics aligned with climate finance requirements, investment logic, and bridges the disconnect between informal and local action and formal finance systems. So it solves several problems, which are the climate finance systems for large-scale formal projects, excluding grassroots actors. Well, we have the existing tools which are measure gender and entrepreneurship separately and fail to convert impact into decision useful investment metrics. So we want to deal with that. So this is just a glimpse on how the form looks like. So I'll take you to a like a mock case for us to try out. So if we can go to the next slide. So I have an example, Amina. So Amina transforms market waste into compost and supports local farmers. But if she cannot document how much waste she diverts or the environmental benefits she creates, it becomes difficult to prove her impact to potential donors or investors. So we have provided you the mock profile of Amina, and you can scan this QR code to try out. But before it, I'm gonna show you how I can transform this form into a digital profile. So if I can share my screen, so I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, so after this, my colleague Nena will share the credentials of the form. So if you go to this website, which is in the QR code before, you will see the username. You can find the username and password that you can fill it out, which is the TESP-CCB, and the password will be sent to you shortly. So here in this dashboard, we're using one one account for all. So we're gonna try to create a new draft with this profile. So here we have several fields that we can fill in. So the first one is activity, business, or enterprise name. So in this case, Amina's business name is EcoGrow Compost Solutions. And later when you tried it, just try to put your name here so that we know like who fill it out. So yeah, this is the activity name or business name. And the size, we see that Amina employs 4 people. So yeah, it's 1 to 50 employees. And the description, it collects organic waste from markets and food vendors and turn it into compost for smallholder farmers. So this is just a description, so we don't have activity logo, so we can skip it. So maybe if I can refresh what Amina does. So Amina is from Lusaka, Zambia, and she has a business which has the name of EcoGrow Compost Solutions. She starts this business 3 years ago after seeing too much fruit and vegetable waste being dumped while farmers struggles with poor soil and high fertilizer cost. So she collect organic waste from markets and food vendors and turn it into compost for smallholder farmers. And she employs 4 people. And last year, she diverted 12 tons of waste from landfill sites and produced 8 tons of compost. So the impact of this business is she reduces waste and improves soil health for farmers, and the business creates jobs for young people and make organic fertilizer affordable. And for the climate impact itself, Amina says that water shortages make household chores take longer, and she gets help from family when needed, and better water access and child care support would help her manage both work and family better. So her day will look like cooking for average in 2 hours per day, and cleaning for 1 hour, and caring for children in 3 hours. So really, our farm is not really focused. Is not only focusing on the impact or like technical impact only, but this farm also takes into account her life outside the business, like how is it being a grassroots women entrepreneur there. So that's just briefly what Amina is doing. So we're gonna transform it into this digital profile of her. So here we have green sectors that we can choose, and we can actually choose one, but in this case, let's try this one, which is the waste and circular economy. So it consists of recycling, composting, upcycling, and zero waste design. But we have some other sectors that you can fill it out in the real cases. So yeah, we have these all sectors, and we can fill out the entrepreneur name, which is Amina Kamara, and the city is Lusaka, Zambia. And in the future, in the real cases, you can save progress and save it as draft. But here, for the sake of demonstration, we can go to the next page. Yeah. So the second page is general impact metrics. So not only we're counting the specific impact metrics, which is the waste and circular economy. We also want to know if you have the data on the general impact metrics. So for example, you have the other data such as water saved, and not only quantitative, but qualitative, like community validation, practice adaptation, etc. And each metrics, you would see like this. If you click on this, and you can click more than one. So just try this one first. So the amount we can put in kilograms. So we have several units. So let's put tons, and it's 12 tons, and we need to explain a little bit and or the calculation method. So for the sake of this demonstration, I will just say this, and then in the real case you can upload evidence, but for now let's skip it. So yeah, this is the general impact matrix. We have CO2 emissions, water safe, energy safe, etc. And in the qualitative, we also have similar things, but not in the quantitative terms. So you can also add additional information here. Yeah, and in the next one, we are in the sector-related impact matrix. So before we chose the waste and circular economy, so I would fill out the metrics that are in the data. So in this case, we have the waste collected and then the compost produced. So in the waste collected, we can fill out the same thing. So this is in kilograms. So we're gonna convert it into tons, into kilograms from tons. So, for example, like this. And a brief explanation, just like a waste diverted. And then in the compost, we can also put how many kilograms per year, and it's a compost produce, something like this. And you have the qualitative impact matrix as well, but we don't have anything here in the data. So let's click on next. And there's an impact of climate hazards affecting her or her business. So we see that there's a water shortage. She experienced water shortage. So we can click on this. And we also take into account the unpaid care work. So we're looking at Amina's day-to-day life, not only the business life. So we see how many hours does she dedicate daily to cooking and preparing food, which is 2, and how many hours to care the children, and how many hours to dedicate in cleaning or house maintenance. So if I click on next, you will see that your form is ready for submission. You can click the button below to submit. Or if you're not ready or you need to fill in more data, you can save progress so that you can go back and then edit the data. So for now, I'll just submit it. Okay, so you will see the submission successful. And now you will see all the submitted reports here. So if you try after this shortly, you will see your report here as well. So if I minimize it and click on this, so this is the digital profile that she has now. So it has all the data that we've been filling out. So the activity description and information, and then the quantitative impact matrix that we filled out. And if in the future, if you attach the evidence, it will also show here. And there's an unpaid care work that we filled out. So there's an impact of climate hazards, and yeah, so hopefully this needs a lot of improvement. And we're here also to not only me talking to you about this form, but also for you to try out and experience it. And if you have any idea and how to share the experience on how to improve this form, that's very great. So I'm gonna welcome you to try this form. So I'm gonna share again here. You can scan the QR code and then create a new draft. And under the first field, indicate your own names, like for example, like Grow your name, and then submit it and see the profile. And yeah, we can discuss it more. So yeah, I think I will leave you for 10 minutes to try out this form, and don't worry, this is not high stake activity. So just please try out, and we'll see what you're thinking on the form. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Muti. So now for you all, if you could check the chat section, we have the username and the password there so that you can try out. And then there's also a link for you to go to the form where it's located. If you just have to click there. For those who have their phone nearby, you could also try to make use of your phone. Just scan as provided as instructions. So if you could just retain this page, Muti. And then so shortly, all of you will be moved to breakout rooms. We're going to be moved to 2 separate breakout rooms shortly. And then once you're in the breakout rooms, you have an opportunity to try out the form and have a bit of reflections before coming back to the main room. Yannick? I think we might be having a bit of a technical glitch here.
Yeah, I think the timer is starting, so if you want to start, head start, you can.
Yes, go ahead, Lillian, you have your hand raised. So it appears we have a technical glitch with our breakout room option. So if you could all kindly go ahead and try it out, and then we can have a quick round in the next 3 minutes to just have feedback in terms of those who've already tried it, if there are any reflections on the process for you all. Seems that those were still asking. So unfortunately, we have a technical glitch and the breakout room option is not working. So, but feel free already to try out the form The code is already there in the chat section. We can resend it again. So Nena, if you could kindly resend it again, the password and the username, and then also the link to the form for the colleagues to try out and all the participants. And we will resume with Muti to just check in and share any quick reflections from those who are already using the form. So we have 3 minutes remaining for this part. For those who still haven't been able to access the link is in the chat, the username and the password for you to try out the form. So hopefully you are all wrapping up now, and Muti. So we're left with 2 minutes. So if you can be on standby for
Sure.
quick questions. And then maybe just to check time, I think we have about, give it 3 minutes at most to have quick reflections or questions from the participants online on the form. If they, all right.
Can we start the Q&A or should I wait like 2 minutes?
I think we can already start. So for the participants, if any of you have any questions or any reflections on using the form, we still have 2 minutes. So for those who are still feeling no rush, you can try to wrap up. But for those who already have questions, you can already start sharing your reflections. So some of the questions are already there on the slide. Which parts are most interesting? Which parts were difficult? And what could be improved? So any of these 3 pointers, feel free to also already share in the chats. And for those who might want to share, also feel free to raise.
I see Asikaralu, you said you are unable to upload your logo. Yes, we disabled the attachment feature for now. So that's fine. You can just keep it. Yeah, and just to add like the possible feature improvement or iteration for this form. So for now, it's just like the digital profile of the entrepreneur. But in the future, we really want to have like a data aggregation of all profiles that are submitted. So it's useful for the policymaker, researchers, or intermediaries, or even investors to see all the data that we have and like evidence-based decision for their work. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone has any quick reaction to the form or just anything, questions.
Maybe a quick question is, did anyone happen to finish going through all 4 parts of the form? Do we have any comments or any questions?
Yeah, we actually see here, there are some of them. Olinda already submitted. There's still Kristen, Luthando, Green Champion still filling it out. And don't worry, after this you still have access, so feel free to just wrap up and
So we'll still keep, so someone is saying they're unable to register and somebody struggled to fill their photo in the profile and the logo also.
yeah. So you don't need to register. So go to this link and I shared. You can just log in using the username and password. So you don't need to register because this is like pilot account. And yeah, photo in the so all attachments are disabled for this purpose. So you can just skip everything. Yeah.
Okay, I see you have Flower. I guess that's thank you. She enjoyed the experience from Sher Khan in the chat. And also, I think for Fela, your feedback or your response right now, we're expressing gratitude for that. So I think for all of those who may still have any comments or reflections on the tool in terms of what has been asked also on the slide regarding which parts were interesting for you, which parts were difficult, and what you also think could be improved. And I know for some of you, you would be excited to also test out the tool for yourselves. So we will share more information for that. So thank you so much, Muti. And with that, we can then move forward to the next speaker. So we have from the UNFCCC side an expert already here. No, I believe we have from Ghazala. Sorry, apologies for that. We have Ghazala, who is the CEO of the Next Generation Leaders, an organization in Pakistan. And she's here to share a bit of reflections and also to connect how we can translate the climate evidence, which you are inputting in the tool that was shared earlier. How can we move from having such evidence and into implementation pathways? So over to you, Ghazala.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much to the PCCB network, UNU-VIE, UNFCCC Regional Collaboration Centre, Fundación Avina, and all our partners for bringing us together. I'm Dr. Ghazala Khan, founder and CEO of the Next Generation Leaders and global consultant in gender responsive leadership. Can I have the next slide? Yeah. So during today's session, we have already explored 2 important building blocks. And now I'm going to present like how we can translate climate evidence into implementations. Next slide, please. Yeah. So here is the problem statement. First, we learn how nationally determined contributions, NDC and NAPC, provide the policy direction for climate action. And in the second segment, we explored how the Green Entrepreneurs Climate Impact Model helps grassroots women entrepreneurs generate credible evidence of their climate contribution. So in this segment, how do we transform that evidence into the real implementation? And that is my role to answer how do we transform that into the real implementation, because evidence alone doesn't create change, because decision create change. So next. The segment 1 was about the policies. Think of today's session, which explained how the policies work and how the countries develop their policies. In the next segment, we got our evidence. And now our turn is about the implementation, how we are going to connect these both together to get prepare our documentation, and we can ask for the funds or can get the partnership or can get the collaboration. Next slide, please. So the question is, why does implementation matters? Because countries need evidences. Once they have the policies and they develop their policies, they need an evidence. For what? They need evidence if they want to give you funds, if donors need evidence for the partnerships, even investors needs evidence because they are supposed to invest, and the society, definitely societies, the civilians need evidence what you have done. So we collect all the evidence in the form of this form, and we have now this information. Now the next one is the number 1 and the number 6 to connect them. Like what impact we are creating on the climate, what impact we are creating for our earth to make it more better. And that is the challenge. Yes, please. Next slide. So here is the climate evidence translation framework. I would like to introduce it so that you can get help. Every successful climate initiative follows 5 stages. First one, understand and adapt the map and the policies. Like what is written in the policies, which are written by any country, where they want to see themselves after 3, 5, or 30 years. So what is written in the policies, right? In the next step, we measure the evidence. As an entrepreneur, men or women, if we are working into the climate, so we need to collect the evidence, and we have the proof of the things in the form of this data. The next, we match them with the policies, what is written in the government policies, maybe to get the evidence, right? Because the decision becomes actions, and action generate measurable impact. Next. And the next, what comes is to mobilize it, how we can mobilize these information to get the funding, to get training for a woman entrepreneur, for ourselves as an entrepreneur, or how we can collaborate, or how we can expand our business. Next, please. Yes, the next step is to monitor these impact and move forward for the next 6 months. Yes, next slide. So here are the steps. Like I make it so easy so everyone can understand. The step 1 was which NDC or which national action plan priority does may work with me, like support my work, which policy. Maybe it is regarding the waste management. It can be about the circular economy, or it can be about like how I'm working and helping out in mitigating or controlling the carbon. And so evidence, how we can get the evidence, the data with the stories and the proofs and the impacts. And then here comes the decision. Who need these evidence, right? Partners need these evidence, government need evidence. And the next step is what should happen next when we provide the evidence, and how will success be measured? So success will be measured with that tool, which is already described and explained. And the next term is to connect it with the policies. So here is an interactive exercise for all of us. There are 5 steps which you have to complete. The number 1 is, yes, please. What is your climate solution? So just think, or you already fill the form. So let's, for the example, one woman entrepreneur, she is into recycling plastic waste, right? So what you are doing, what solution you are providing to the government, because the government already have policy and they have the plans, but they want to know that how much you are aligned with their thinking or their how you are supporting them. So you can look into their policies, like what is written in the circular economy, what is in the section of waste management for you, or emission reduction. So that's you can keep your note at the same point. Like now you can write down whatever you are providing your solutions, if you have full knowledge of the policies. Otherwise you can go back and read the policies and check the segment which is most relevant to you, right? And the next, which NDC is your priority? And you have to choose from that policies that which NDC is your priority, which is your tagline, which resemble, align with your business. Like both can go hand to hand. Yes, next please. Question. So what evidence do we have? We have the evidence. For example, the tools shows 15 tons recycled, maybe 120 women employed from the different 15 villages. And we have the proof before and after pictures, right? So this is the data we already have. The next what we have to do? We need this evidence for what? To show it to the municipality, to the green investors, maybe for the climate funds, are the development partner, right? So we have the data. Now we will move toward the proposal portion. Like we have evidence and everything, and this is the policy for which I am working. So we will develop proposal for that. And what decision could be made? After making the proposal, we can find out the exact department which will be helpful for us, like who maybe can provide us the funds. Maybe they can helpful for the trainings to train the women entrepreneurs how to get more, like make it more better their work, or maybe they can be helpful in the infrastructure. We can get partnerships and definitely business expansions for our women entrepreneurs. So this is the exercise, and hope that you're enjoying it. If you have any question, so you can let me know, and what action should happen next. The next is definitely you will have the way to move forward your business, to expand your business, or to get the funds for your business. Next slide. Yeah, if there is any question, so you can write in the chat. What is our reflection? If you are done or you have done, so which step was easiest? Or what is difficult if you are not getting it yet? What evidence if you don't have and you need, so you can work on that. And who should receive your evidence? What partnerships are missing? This is for the feedback, for the reflection. You can let us know that what do you think, what should be added more, or exact to your business, which relates more or helpful for you. Next slide. So the key message is policy gives us the direction, right? And tools generate the evidence, while evidence informs the decision, like what's next, what I can do. I have the evidence, but what I have to do now. So decisions create implementations. What is the next step and how we are going to implement it, and the implementation creates the impacts. Yes. Ask yourself, which policy am I supporting? For that, you need to learn about the policies. What evidence am generating, and how will I measure the success? Definitely, when you have the evidence and you have the data, automatically you can measure your success, and what action will enable. Definitely it will help out to ask for the funds, to ask for the trainings, to ask for the mentorship, to ask for the expansion of your business, guidelines, consultancy. And the next is who need this evidence? Government need it, partners need it, investor need it. So for you, what is the best? Choose it. So thank you so much. Every grassroots woman entrepreneur has a climate story, and our responsibility is to help and transform their stories into the evidence. And today, that's why we are here. Because when evidence informs the decision creates the opportunities, and opportunities creates the resilience, and resilience build the future. Thank you so much. If you have any question, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Ghazala. So I think for now, we can wait to see for those who went through the process, who might have any questions. We'll give you an extra minute just for that to see if there's any reflections on that. Feel free also to add that in the chat. So I think we all were able to hear from Ghazala that definitely policy gives direction, and then that we can make use of tools to generate the evidence. And then with this evidence, we can help us to inform decision. And at the end of the day, overall, the work that you're already doing on the ground, the implementation, that already creates impact. So feel free to try it out and then definitely we will also share the slides after today's event. And moving on, thank you again, Ghazala, for this. We are going to move on to hear the connection of everything and all the other subsections that we've heard of today's discussion. And moving over, we are handing over to Lillian Kempango, who's an expert from UNFCCC. She's an adaptation regional specialist, to provide us an overview to understand exactly how do we connect the dots with all this information and the understanding we've received from all the different speakers today. So over to you, Lillian.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lillian Kempango, and I'm the Adaptation Regional Specialist at the United Nations Climate Change, the RCC East and Southern Africa. So it's a privilege to present to you all on how gender responsive processes are really taking shape in the climate action or in the climate commitments for the countries that they have set. And in this presentation, we shall look at two countries, that is Zambia and Uganda, to see what gender responsive implementation looks like when it moves off from the page to ministries, to budgets, to communities. And especially today that we are talking about women entrepreneurs, we would like to know or would like to share what are some of the entry points that the women entrepreneurs can support, or what are the points where they can really also share their contributions within the policy processes. My colleague initially had already talked about the indices and then our processes, but my question, as I go into details of the presentations, I would like the participants to reflect on what are the indices and their NAPs look like within their countries, and how far they can use these processes to take or to contribute to them. So without further ado, first go to the first presentation to really see what gender responsive implementation is looking like across the world. So taking from the UN Women, Gender and Climate Policy Scorecard, which tracks the recent submitted indices, we see that there are three important really pathways on how gender responsive implementation is taking shape. One is under institutional anchoring, participatory consultations, and also dedicated strategies. So let's look at the numbers. we see that 45% of the countries are already having gender institutions or focal points embedded within the existing ministries or commissions that directly work on climate coordinations, work or climate coordination mechanisms. So practically, this means that we have gender sitting at the planning table, and it's not as a side note. When it comes to participatory consultations, you see that there are 55% of the countries that report actively engaging women, civil society organizations during the NDC consultations. And this is more of a direct entry for the grassroots voices to share their ideas or to share the challenges that they're going through and how they can shape the NDCs or the climate policies like the NAPs to work for them and to deliver on their initiatives. Then we have more than 34 countries that have now a standalone national gender and climate action plan or strategies. These are actually separate from like the NDCs or the NAP themselves, which typically comes with its own dedicated budget mandate, giving gender responsive implementation real institutional weight rather than just a paragraph or a larger document. So while we're talking about this, we just want to understand, we're looking at connecting the dots. We are talking about gender from a policy perspective, but what is exactly happening in the countries themselves? What is the evidence, and how can women entrepreneurs take part in these processes? So we shall deep dive into the country case studies, and we shall start with Zambia. Next slide. So Zambia is a great example of gender not being an afterthought in climate planning, but it's actually built within the system. So we look at the law that was passed in 2024, that is the Green Economy and Climate Change. This law gives the country's climate work a proper legal foundation, but also run by the Council of Ministers. And this also combines with the Zambia 2023 National Gender Policy, which is now really shaping gender responsive actions. And this gives gender a very important legal backup, and it just not only it leaves it just not a policy aspiration, but actually ensuring that gender is implemented as a legal basis. Then there is the institutional mechanisms, which I think is one of the most replicable parts for other countries. We see that Zambia already has built multi-sector stakeholder working groups across the ministries, first for the mitigation planning, then for its greenhouse inventory, greenhouse gas inventory. But you see that these groups are now being merged into a single NDC platform and the gender focal points. So they have more than 3 or 5 people from every ministry that are being added to this platform. So Zambia is embedding gender expertise into the structures that already hold decision-making power, and this helps implementation to become much more easier, especially when you have people that are gender expertise, ensuring that most of the actions or strategies that are to be implemented are more inclusive. This thinking also extends to the finance, where we see the Bank of Zambia is mainstreaming gender consideration into the Green Loan Guidelines, with support from the UNDP and the NDC Partnership Action Fund. So this means that gender integration is reaching the financial regulators and not just the environment ministries. For us to translate policy into action, one of the means of implementation is finance. And if most of these financing institutions ensure that gender is integrated and is considered as one of the key action areas for people to get finance, then we are seeing that these institutions are really supporting gender integration. And lastly, we see that gender is not just stopping at strategies or just institutions, but we see that there is practical implementation of gender-related initiatives, which actually provides a very clear transformation that we're just moving from practice, from policy, but also with various impacts, as we shall see in the next slide. Next slide. So we see that there are various gender-responsive climate action resiliency, and I just picked only 3 projects to show us how Zambia is actually taking gender integration very serious in its project. One is the increasing climate resilience in energy and agriculture systems and entrepreneurship. This is a climate and gender-focused initiative implemented by the SNV, and it targets smallholder farmers, particularly women, youth, across the eastern southern Lusaka. We see that some of the initiatives especially really involves empowerment, training women in some of the sectors such as agriculture. That's why we see that women really are very important in our agriculture and just as a major livelihood for the country. And these projects are supporting more than 5,160 women, and also ensuring that increasing yield production. We also look at some of the initiatives in integrated water resources management, where we have the IWRM project. So this project targets the water-stressed areas heavily affected by droughts, and it prioritizes women who bear the brunt of water scarcity by enhancing water-efficient innovations and reducing water resource conflicts. And the lastly is policy and strategy related initiative, that is the expanded response to climate resilience in development. This project is supported by the African Development Bank. It's a broad initiative aimed at enhancing food security and economic development by strengthening the adaptive capacity of the vulnerable rural and urban communities. So broadly looking at these 3 projects, we see Zambia that is proving that gender-responsive climate action works at every stage. We see training and empowerment happening. We also see aspects of easing the burden where women and girls fetch water, but now also investing in the systems that ensure that some of these projects keep running and supporting women. So you see that when we build gender into a more actual institutions, as we see for the case of Zambia, especially in embedding it into the institutions that support climate work, ministries, central bank, and agencies delivering these projects, we see that gender stops being just a promise on paper, but it becomes part on how actually the system works. So our next slide would be on a case study for Uganda, and we see that Uganda really provides a very good, honest complement to the Zambia case. It shows a country that is moving and is still in the middle of the journey. In the NDC that is currently in the current NDC cycle, the first NDC, we saw that Uganda looked at women only as those that are vulnerable. And but now we are the country is moving to actually looking at women more as doers than just decision makers. Then we also have various tools and frameworks that are being supported by the country. For instance, the National Gender Monitoring Office that tracks and reports gender data across the sectors. We have the Ministry of Gender and Labor and Social Development, among others. But then also the country is receiving a lot of technical support from partners such as the FAO and UNDP Scholar Program to provide gender analysis. So looking at the story from Uganda, we see that there are strong tools, growing political will, and a real opportunity right now where most of the commitments that are done that have been provided in the climate policies are turned into actions that are funded, tracked, and delivered. So some of the projects that are very important or that have delivered to the gender responsive commitments. Next slide, please. Yeah, so some of the actions that have been implemented by the government of Uganda include the Women's Empowerment for Resilience and Adaptation Against Climate initiatives, and then the BRIC projects, and then the Girls for Climate Action. I wanted to put more emphasis on the Girls for Climate Action because this is one of the youth-led initiative that is really helping climate policy and advocacy. We are seeing them as some of the outputs or activities that they're doing. They're creating climate demonstration hubs. They are shifting the local environment committee dominated by male to now be more of women-centric and led by them. And also they are securing a mandate of the 1/3 women seat on the National Climate Change Advisory Committee, which is a very good transition, telling us that women are taking center and lead in defining and implementing climate-led actions. So as we are talking about today is what are the entry points for women entrepreneurs who are on the who are participating today. Next slide. So as women entrepreneurs, you've seen what's happening in the other countries. My colleague had already talked about the gender gaps, integration, but then what we want to continue talking about is what are some of the entry points, and some of the entry points exist within our countries that we might not know about, such as the public consultations. Currently, we have NDCs and the NAPS review and update, and some of these really require women to be part of these processes and provide information on what might be lacking. Then we also have gender and climate focal points, which I also believe these are opportunities for women who are in here to help us bridge, the gender and the climate policy, so they can introduce themselves and be part of these engagements. Then we have the women fund aggregators. So we were talking about how women can access funds, but this is mostly hard when you have to do it alone. But if women come together into a group, they are able to meet the donor criteria, and there are actually intermediaries that exist to specifically pull these grassroots initiatives for women to fundable scale. Then the other part is the evidence and readiness. We have already seen the tool that has been communicated, and this is one that can be leveraged on by the women entrepreneurs, as it gives a way to translate lived work into the language of investors and negotiators that we can already recognize. Then as Regional Collaboration Centre for East and Southern Africa, we exist to bridge the national policy and the local implementation. We support capacity building, so the institution is readily available to provide any support that the women and youth might need. And the last one is the peer network. We've seen a presentation from the CEO for the Next Generation Leaders, and these are networks that really can be used to build collective bargaining power. As women, we carry more weight in rooms when we are part of coalitions than working alone. So next slide. So what are some of the practical steps as we move forward? If you see properly, on the left side is more on the policy, and the other side is your business. They talked about understanding what are you working on, and through this pathway or through understanding the climate commitments for your countries, for instance, working on the NDCs or the NAPs, you need to identify a sector or a theme that your work contributes on, whether it is energy, agriculture, water wash, among others. Then you use the climate impact tool that we've already talked about, help quantify the emissions avoided or resilience built, or the number of people, or the impact that you are creating. Then speak the policy language. Here we look at how do you frame or pitch using the same targets, indicators, or priorities the NDCs and NAP document already have. So that alignment is what makes easier to when you're looking for funding. Then step 4 is looking at connecting to the finance mechanism. So where you have to identify which gender responsive funds or grant windows or intermediaries aligns with your evidence. So you have as women, you have your entrepreneur business that is aligned to the NDC or NAP, but you need to identify which financing mechanisms you can tap into to get this money and continue to work on it and improve productivity. If, for instance, if it's a climate smart agriculture initiative or WASH or it's in West, among others. Then the last one, or step 5, is to engage into the processes and not just the documents. So when you join consultations, join the focal point networks, these networks helps you to share your evidence, and this shapes your next projects that you're working on. So this is really helping us to translate the policy frameworks into the local gender responsive actions and what women entrepreneurs or women leaders in climate action can move as they look to engage in the NDC or climate or national climate policy aspects. So last, as I wind up on my presentation, I just want to leave us with 3 questions that's really from the entire presentation, especially from the RCC side, and that's actually important for you for your own reflection. So one is really, what is an NDC or NAP, and why should an entrepreneur like you understand them beyond the simple compliance? Next is, how do these NDCs and NAP currently incorporate gender responsive financing commitments, and how are these commitments actually being translated into implementation? And lastly, that is very important for us, is what gaps or tools are still needed for greater engagement and participation for women entrepreneurs. So as I conclude, my last slide, I just want to leave us with a note that policy sets the mandate. We have the Paris Agreement, the Gender Action Plan. The latest NDC review cycle is happening. Some countries are reviewing, or they are just starting to develop their NAPs. And all of these really expect gender responsiveness as a standard. So when you look at the implementation, you see implementation is where women's leadership makes it real. So the gap between the two is not technical, but it's actually the work ahead of all of us in this room. Thank you very much, and over to you, our moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lillian, for that quick overview and understanding of concrete entry points for women to engage and to contribute, and also sharing the lustrous example from Zambia, where already there's a lot of action that are happening, and also financial support being channeled to different gender issues across the country. So for now, I think we can move for any quick questions. If we may have any questions in the chat, and if we might have others also, the participants, feel free to raise your hand if possible, so that you can ask your questions. If you might have also reflections, please feel free to also enter that also in the chat. I believe we had a question from Abdul Sata. If you're still online, if you'd like to go ahead and ask, I believe, your question. So I believe, do we have any other question in the chat, Nena, by any chance?
Yes, I'm going to paste it in the chat. It's in the quick Q&A, but I would paste it in the chat right now.
I think I can see the question. So the question, I think this is more directed to one of the NDC or could be the adaptation experts from UNFCCC. So the question reads, many countries have adopted gender responsive climate policies, yet women remain underrepresented in climate decision making. So what are the biggest barriers that are preventing implementation? And how can governments ensure that women's participation in climate governance goes beyond symbolic representation and it leads to real decision making power? And additionally, what measurable indicators should be used to evaluate whether climate policies genuinely empower women rather than merely include gender-related language? And despite international commitments under the Paris Agreement and the SDG goals, why do women continue to bear the greatest burden of climate disasters? So it's quite a mouthful of questions. And I don't know whether Minky or Lillian, you would want to try to tackle one of these questions?
Yes. Thank you for the question. It is quite a mouthful, some of which we have tried to address in the initial presentation, but generally the biggest barriers that we're seeing in terms of implementation is the issues around institutional arrangements and government and governance. As much as countries have designated gender focal points, but we still see that there is quite a room for improvement in ensuring that their national climate change strategies linked with gender to ensure that there is that alignment and the gender focal points are not just embedded within the gender departments, but are part and parcel of the ministries of environment and so forth. But also is ensuring that gender is not just a mere mention in these national policies, but when it comes now to developing smart indicators to enable countries to actually track progress and ensure that the information or that is gender disaggregated is actually collected to ensure that there is improvement in the policies and the initiatives that are being implemented. But in all, the work of governments in ensuring that they provide the enabling environment goes beyond just government itself. The implementation of the NDCs or the NAPs, they actually really require a whole of society approach beyond just government, which is where we see grassroots level organizations coming on and also providing that support. But what is very, very critical to understand is also the importance of building capacity to actually develop bankable project proposals that will actually attract this financing to ensure that these climate action initiatives actually come into fruition and actually part and parcel of implementation for governments to ensure that they are quite successful in the meeting their climate commitments. I am saying a lot of things at the same time. I am hoping that for Ahmed, it's actually much more clear.
Thank you so much, Minky. And then I don't know, Lillian, if you'd like to also jump in on this part, if there's any that's still remaining on your end, because we had a whole data set. Okay. All right. Noted. So I think for now, we'll also allow, there may be questions for the other panelists, whether regarding the presentation from Gazala also. Are there any additional questions, Nina, in the chat?
No,
any comments?
not at the moment.
Yeah. So I think if there's no more questions, we've had quite a lot and we've had an opportunity to hear from all the amazing experts we had today for the panel and all the interactive exercises that we had in store. I think for now we can then share some of the existing resources we still have. So Nina, if I could kindly have one of the slides. So for those who are still interested, would like to feel that they want to expand the green sector or the type of green businesses they have, we also have a set of sector-specific courses, which are just in a summary courses or information that can help you to enter particular sectors, whether it could be under renewable energy, water, waste. So there's a whole set of different market segments that you can enter under around these green sectors. So we will share also the link. It's already there in the chat. I see my colleague has already shared. And then we also have an active newsletter where we always share updates that we have for any events that we might also have. And we also have a set of webinars that are talking about different issues that affect women entrepreneurs. Also, we've provided a link to our website, also a link to UNFCCC, RCC, and also a link to the organization from Gazala, the Next Generation Leaders, for those who want to know additional information or may be interested to have additional questions that they may also have from the panelists, but are not able to ask those questions within the frame of today's event. And with that, we would like to thank you so much for your attention. I know we went a little bit above the set time because it was quite exciting and there were so many questions shared. And then with this, I would like to thank you all today for joining our session and to also thank PCCB for this great opportunity to have this event. And also, please do kindly visit PCCB. It has been shared already in the chat. My colleague can also reshare it. Also in the chat for you to also visit and learn more about PCCB and also so many other upcoming exciting events that they have under the frame of PCCB. I see we have one raised hand from Jacqueline. If you could kindly go ahead, you should be able to speak now. Jacqueline, you had your hand raised. If you could kindly go ahead and speak.
I was asking for the recordings, please. I joined late.
Sorry, if you could come again. I don't know. Nina, were you able to hear the question?
Yes, she just asked for the recording. She came in late, but we would share the resources.
So we will definitely share with you the presentations today and also the recording. So that is kindly noted.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? So it seems we do not have.
Yeah, we have to take a photo if possible before
so
we leave.
if all panelists, if you could kindly activate your cameras again. I believe are our participants able to activate or it's just panelists just for a quick check, Nina? I think it should be only the panelists.
If they want to be featured.
Okay. Can you help me activate my camera?
Sorry. It's not working.
Let me try on my end. It's Lillian, right?
Yes.
No.
Even me activate my camera.
Oh my God, we have 2 more questions, but I don't know where.
Yeah, Lillian, your camera is activated, so we're able to see you. We have 2 more questions? Yeah, I think this one is lengthy. I'll just say it. You don't have to answer it here, so they can always follow up later, but then I'm just going to read them out. One of them is regarding the accreditation part. So how could we get accreditation to take part of COP31 as an observer through NGOs or a side event manager or as an African climate activist? Because they're saying that a few opportunities are available. So that's the first question. And Nina, do we have another one? Because I think it's the same question I'm seeing here on my end. The other one seems to have
that's
been.
all.
Yeah, that's all. Okay. So we will answer your question. I think it goes to the UNFCCC team since you have a lot of questions on your end. So I think we can go ahead to take the group photo. Are you taking the photo, Nina? Do we have it? Is it Nina or it's both of you are muted, so I'm unable to hear. Colleagues, do we have the photo or not? Nina, if you're speaking, I'm not able to hear you.
Okay, I have a picture.
Thank you so much. So thank you, colleagues. We have a photo and it's been quite an interesting event. So good evening and good afternoon for the other ones who are still starting their day. For us, it's already late afternoon. We're about to wrap up our day and wish you a very great day for those who are still starting their days. All right. Thank you, colleagues. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.